flashes, night sweats, mood swing, and weight gain? Ladies, are you experiencing any of these symptoms associated with menopause? Due to the sensitive nature of today's topic, viewers' discretion is advised. Hello, I am Oriani Tangishaka, and this is Our Voices. On today's show, I am joined by Simenyeshi Yakoye. Amina Aliyu is off. Menopause in a woman's life is a time that marks the end of her reproductive years. In many cases, her period stops and her body goes through a process of adjusting to that change with various symptoms. As many studies have shown, some of the common symptoms are hot flashes, sleep disturbance, mood swings, weight gain, and even a severe form of depression, amongst a dozen of other symptoms. The research Women Across the Nation recent longitude study shows that women in African heritage are likely to go through menopause earlier than others. On Our Voices today, we'll hear from experts on why this is the case and how to navigate this natural process. Thank you for joining us. Simonish, menopause is something that happens to almost every woman. What comes to your mind when you hear that word?
Aging. Like it's so far away from me, or something that doesn't concern me. So I guess because of that, I barely know anything about menopause, and I know that it's wrong. It's wrong.
Oh my God, you're singing my song. That's exactly how I feel. I think a lot of women are in that same situation where we feel like it's going to come in 100 years. We don't have to worry about it, but it's going to happen.
Yes, it's going to happen. So that's why I say I am wrong, because we need to know, we need to be informed what's going to happen to our body even in the future, so that we can be ready to get the right help and to know where to get that help from, right?
Exactly, and that's why I'm glad we're talking about this, because even us are going to learn a lot about it, so exactly. I'm excited.
Many women are struggling to understand the changes their bodies go through during menopause. Some lack the care and support needed during this period in their lives. In Senegal and across Africa, its support remains marginal. Alison Lekongo Fernandez tells us more from Dakar, Senegal.
In Senegal, few women go to health professionals for treatment of menopause-related disorders. To understand the reasons, Professor Abdulaziz Diouf, gynecologist, conducted research on this subject as part of his thesis.
The age of the onset of menopause here has been found to be younger than the Caucasian population, which is around 50 to 51 years old. But on the other hand, we saw that all the women presented a troubled menopause. If it was not the hot flashes, it was the night sweats. If it was not the night sweats, it was something else.
Migraines, joint pain, the symptoms are manifold and vary from woman to woman. They appear during perimenopause, the time before your period stops completely.
The transition phase is the hardest time. There is the irritability, the mood swings, the hot flashes. You don't understand the clinical manifestations that are going on in your body. You tell yourself that it's a disease that sets in, when it is a period that is paramount in a woman's life.
It was her experience more than her training that enabled Madeleine Serre to acquire knowledge about menopause. In a country where those under 20 represent 55% of the population, training courses are geared more towards caring for mothers and children. And in general, menopause just isn't talked about that much.
When it comes to menopause, women are not informed. During consultation, we interview them to explain the changes and clinical manifestations.
Madeleine gives them attentive listening and psychological support, because menopause is a feared stage by many women, and it's not just for physiological reasons.
They have a psychosocial definition of menopause. There's an end to the period. We no longer have children. We change our social situation within the family.
The loss of fertility can lead to an existential crisis, a depression. A minority of women, on the other hand, say they experience menopause as a liberation.
Now, in the U.S., black women reach menopause 8.5 months earlier than white women, who have worse symptoms, that also have worse symptoms, and they're less likely to receive hormone therapy as well as medical and mental health services, according to Michigan University News. This conclusion is based on a review of 25 years of research by the Study of Women's Health Across the Nation, or SWAN. Let's dig this deeper, and we have our guest, Omishade Bernie Scott, the founder of Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause. Mrs. Bernie Scott, thank you so much for joining our voices.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mrs. Bernie Scott, you have definitely been working a lot on this topic. In your writings, you talk a lot about the importance of normalizing and the process of menopause and aging. This came to you through your personal journey. Can you share with us a little bit about that journey?
Of course. I mean, I think everyone has their own personal journey that hopefully informs their understanding around menopause, but many of us feel very confused by that experience. I actually was perimenopausal in my late 30s and my early 40s. And I did not know that there was a spectrum of experiences until I experienced a pregnancy loss at 40. And that's when my OBGYN said that it was not uncommon for perimenopausal women to experience a pregnancy loss or a miscarriage. And I had no idea that there was a thing called perimenopause. So that made me more curious about the nature of it at that point. And at 41, I had my second son. But it wasn't until I was 53 that I actually launched the Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause and wanted to use my experience as a reproductive justice advocate to elevate the experiences of Black women, women identified and gender expansive people in the United States. So that way we could center their stories, their experiences, and also ground this in an understanding of how gender inequities impact our experiences as Black women.
Dr. Bernie, some researchers show that Black women who experience menopause in America struggle to get the help they need. So to help with that, you started a podcast called The Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause. Can you tell us about how you are using this platform to bring a culture shift or policy change?
Absolutely. And thank you for giving me doctor status. I'm not a doctor, but I appreciate you giving that to me. In 2019, we launched the Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause as a culture and narrative shift multimedia project. We wanted to be able to hear the different stories from Black women across generations. So it's a very much an intergenerational storytelling space, because we know that there are a lot of assumptions and taboos and stigma related to the menopause experiences across the board. And certainly marginalized people, African Americans, LGBTQ plus people, younger people who experience menopause, their stories were not being elevated, nor were they being affirmed. So over the last 4 years, we've learned quite a bit about not only how the people are experiencing menopause, but likely why people are experiencing menopause early. Now, I'm not a researcher, but we do take into account the cultural and the social political implications of a menopause experience as well.
Now, you also focus on older women a lot of times, 50s, 60s, and 70s and beyond. You talk about how you wanted to have your mother with you when you were going through that menopause and premenopausal stage, but she had already passed. Many women are in that predicament. How can they take steps to locate mental health and emotional support needed to assist them through this journey?
Exactly. My mother passed away when I was 31, and she was a registered nurse. So I felt very prepared for my menstruation and when I started my menstrual cycle. And I also felt prepared when I had my first son because she was alive then. I think a lot of women in the country, not only in the United States, but around the world, are not having conversations about our bodies. And this has a lot to do with the societal or cultural stigma around women's bodies. So when we think about the impact of patriarchy and misogyny, especially on Black women or women of African descent, it has a great bearing on how we know information about who we are and how our bodies change naturally over time. So there's a growing menopausal landscape. There are several platforms growing here in the US and also in the United Kingdom, where we are centering those stories and inviting women to be a part of the dialogue and to have open and honest, transparent conversations.
You talk a lot about, being comfortable for women to be comfortable in their own skin. So when we talk about breaking the stigma, so what for women, especially in their 60s, struggling to go through some of the severe symptoms of the symptoms of menopause, what does being comfortable in their own skin mean?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I would recommend for anybody, no matter their age, but certainly for Gen X women or folk who are in the baby boomer generation, being comfortable in your skin first begins with you believing your body. You are the expert of your body. You've been inside your body your entire life, so you know when your body is changing. But oftentimes we are confused about how to interpret the messages that our bodies are giving us. This is why community is important, and this is why access to a healthcare provider who sees you in all of your fullest humanity and personhood is important as well. So some of the things that we recommend to folk is being able to have conversations with close confidants, with your intimate friends who you can share your experiences with, seeking out resources like the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause. There's a podcast in the UK called Menopause While It's Black. There are Black menopause platforms growing every day, being led by Black women. And that is not to say that our experience is different because we're women. Our experiences are different because culturally, ethnically, and racially, we have different lived experiences.
Omshade Bernie Scott, thank you so much for sharing your experience and guide to supporting Black women going through menopause.
Thank you so much.
Now it's time for a break. When we return, we will discuss how menopause is occurring in much younger women. Don't forget to share your experience and thoughts on today's topic on our social media platforms. We are on Facebook at VOA Africa, and our Instagram and Twitter handle is at VOA Our Voices. We are also on WhatsApp, and our number is country code +1 202 503 9025. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depend on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
From around the world. Let's go.
Welcome back. You're watching Our Voices. We're discussing menopause. Let's examine why more and more young Black women are experiencing menopause earlier than before. For more perspective, we've invited Dr. Joy L. Bayard. The program is She's a board-certified gynecologist and women's health expert. She's also known as the Menopause Mogul. Welcome, Dr. Ballard.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, so good to have you. Now, before we discuss a little bit more about why young women are going through menopause earlier, let's take a look at what some of the women in Kampala, Uganda are going through. Okay. Let's take a look.
My name is Namwenge Daffin. I'm a student. I first expressed menopause at the age of 18 years.
My name is Namaganda, and I started missing my periods at the age of 35. I first experienced backache and joint pains.
My menopause came at the age of 35. At first, it was intermittent, going and coming back after 1 to 2 months before it became permanent. I used to feel a lot of pain in the fallopian tube, general body weakness, backache, and joint pains.
I went to a doctor at first for a checkup because I thought maybe I have a problem. Then when I went there at first, they told me my diet is not good. They're like, you have to change your diet in order for you to go in your medicines monthly. But still I did it. I changed my diet, but it didn't change so much.
I
always go to a medical doctor who prescribes some tabs for me.
When I went back to a doctor, they gave me some tablets. They told me my hormones, there's hormonal imbalancing. They have to balance the hormones. They gave me some tablets. At first it was working for me, but again I went back to the condition.
I take local herbs and some tabs prescribed by a medical doctor to manage the symptoms.
It's definitely heartbreaking when you have to go through menopause at a very young age. I mean, yes. One of them went to menopause at 18. That's very devastating. Yes. Now, from an OBGYN, a gynecologist standpoint, what may be causing that?
So let's talk about just the kind of definitions of, so premature menopause is menopause before the age of 40. Early menopause is from the ages of 40 to 45. And you had mentioned in the previous segment about Black women, women of color going through menopause earlier than white women. And the research has shown that that can be associated with smoking, that can be associated with having procedures done that's removing one ovary because it decreases the amount of estrogen that's being supplied. And Black women also have worse symptoms as far as menopause, and that also can be associated with psychosocial stressors that Black women can experience. Your previous guest mentioned, we have a different lived experience, and that causes something called an allostatic load, where essentially there's chronic stressors from discrimination, racism, just all the psychosocial things that we deal with as Black women. The research suggests that that can impact us how we experience our menopause earlier and more severe.
Mm-hmm. You said that you want to be in control of what's happening with your body. And I see that on your website you write, what if you could eliminate or minimize your symptoms and feel amazing? I hear a lot of women saying, how? Yes. Yes. Including myself. Right. Is that even possible?
Yes.
How can we do that?
How can we do that? And that's the thing, we're going through perimenopause and into menopause. We feel a loss of control, right? Because our bodies are going through these changes like, what is happening? And the first thing I talk to women about is prioritizing yourself. Right? When we're getting into these late 30s, early 40s, we are so used, especially as women, especially as Black women, so used to taking care of everybody else and putting ourselves at the bottom of the priority list. actually prioritizing yourself in these midlife years makes such a world of a difference when you're trying to navigate through these changes. So that's where we start. We prioritize, put yourself number one on the priority list. More me time, more I just want to just take care of myself. And the other thing that I talk to women about is, through these changes, like I said, it can be very devastating, very just disheartening. We have to learn to change our response to it, right? Like, we don't want to just sit in like, oh my God, this is happening and this is doom and gloom. Like, no, it's going to be okay. Change your response, and it's listening to your body and really figuring out and asking yourself, what do I need right now? Like, I'm having these hot flashes, I'm having this mood changes. What do I need? Do I need rest? Do I need, a change in my diet? Things like that. So just asking yourself questions like that.
So when we pay attention to ourselves, are there any general signs that helps you know you are transitioning to menopause?
So the definite sign is when you're actually menopausal, when you have 12 consecutive months when you have no period whatsoever, no bleeding whatsoever. So you have, no period for 12 months. So that's, definitely menopause. But you also, when you're getting up to that point, you have a change in your cycles, right? Your menstrual cycles are, skipping months, you're having them twice a month, and you may have symptoms. There's over 30 of menopausal symptoms.
Wow.
So there can be hot flashes, mood swings, irritability, all those things. Fatigue, yes, all those things.
And so you were telling me there are women who don't have any of those signs too.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Exactly. So you have the one extreme of, like, my mom had nothing. She just stopped having a period.
Wow.
Versus myself had many of the things: night sweats, irritability, mood swings, acne, and changes in my cycle. And that, you can be on that extreme. So it kind of depends on everyone has their own unique experience.
Right. The other experience is some women really their sex drive is affected.
Yes.
And many of them experience dryness or pain during sex. Why is that?
That is because of the lack of the estrogen hormones are declining. And our estrogen, it helps with vascularizing our vaginal walls. It's in the secretions. So when that is decreasing, or when we're entering menopause, that causes a lot of dryness, and that dryness subsequently causes pain when you're having intercourse. So there's different methods that we use, whether it's estrogen cream versus other over-the-counter lubricants and things like that, that are available to women that can help with that.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the tips that you can give us? Because we heard that you also have a podcast.
Yes.
Can you give us some takeaways for women? Because you give it once a month. Give us for February.
Yes.
Especially for younger women, because it's sometimes harder to accept for them. Like, am I getting old? They're associated with getting, aging.
Right.
So.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I am all about this whole anti-aging. Let's get rid of anti-aging. We want to be pro-aging here, right? My Menopause Moguls podcast is available to women just to talk about, menopause does not have to be the end. It can be the beginning of your next level, and really kind of, heading in that direction with that attitude. And again, like I mentioned before, it's so important to truly prioritize yourself in regards to just honing in on self-care and managing your stress level, because stress is a big deal when you're navigating through these changes, because they can impact and make them more severe and more frequent. So if you can find the things that bring you joy and do those things a lot, and small things, lighting a candle, listening to music, whatever that small thing is, that I think makes a world of difference when you're navigating through these changes.
Wow. It seems like you're going through it gracefully, and I think a lot of women out there should feel like it's not the end, as you said.
Yes.
Now,
Are there enough resources out there, especially for women, if they want to know, what is this a symptom or is this something else? Are there resources for young women, especially to explore, to learn more, and to get to seek help?
Yeah. Is the taboo still very heavy, or?
No, I think it's definitely the times are changing, which is an awesome thing. A lot of women are talking about it more. There's so many, women, Black women on Instagram that are talking about. You had your previous guest, Omasade, Bernie Scott is awesome. Dr. Sharon Malone. There's so many women, Black women, who are talking about menopause and this perimenopausal transition and offering resources for them. And I also just, also want to tell women that being able to talk to their own healthcare providers is also very important, because you don't want to be out here just trying to Google things. And
What about sharing experiences among women?
You're right, sharing other experience with other women and things like that. And there's different groups that they can join. Like social media is a big thing where women can find resources in regards to
and also your doctor, primary care doctor is a good start, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
And then your gynecologist, of course.
Right.
We appreciate so much your insight. But now it's time for our Women to Watch segment.
All right, so let's meet a mother and daughter behind a new menopause artificial intelligence wristband. That's right, Debbie Dickinson and her daughter Markia Dickinson are the creators of a new AI wristband and app. It's a thermoband that used to help women in menopause to manage hot flashes. According to People of Color Intake, Debbie had this idea to create a smart bracelet by installing cooling or warming sensations to relieve women suffering from crippling menopausal symptoms. The discrete wristband monitors and manages temperature. The program, co-created by a team of scientists, physicians, and engineers, uses discrete wristbands that monitor a user's body over days and weeks to pick up on the slightest thermal shift. Once the program detects a hot flash, it aims to stop it by delivering battery-powered cooling. The band also tracks clients' blood pressure and heart rate. How amazing is that?
That is amazing.
That is amazing.
Well, Dr. Ballard, as we close out the show, do you have any last words? Maybe something about what you just heard about this exciting AI wristband?
Yeah, I mean, that's an exciting wristband. I wish, can I get one?
Me too, I'm definitely getting one.
Exactly.
When I heard about it, I said, oh my God, I need to put notes down, buy it in a few years.
Exactly.
Or maybe in 100 years.
Right. Not 100 years.
Not 100 years. It's going to happen sooner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, the wristband, and honestly, just being more mindful of taking care of yourself, right? They've been mentioning monitoring the blood pressure, all those things, so very important. Eating a plant-based diet is very important, exercising, moving our bodies, things like that. And like I said, just being more in tune with your soul and your spirit as you're going through these changes, because just the idea of, like I said, just changing your attitude about aging and about getting older, and not make it about being doom and gloom and my life is over and things are just going down the drain. Like, no, this is your time to actually shine and be your best self.
I think your partner, your husband, or somebody in your life also has a part in that, and how they make you feel like, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. And it's very important to communicate with your partner, right? Because a lot of women, they struggle in silence, even not even talking to their partners about these things, like you mentioned, vaginal dryness, things like that. So being able to have those conversations with your partner, with your doctor, all those things is so important as you're navigating through these changes.
Well, that's our show for this week. Special thanks to Omishade Bernie Scott and Dr. Joy L. Ballard for being with us today's discussion. On behalf of Our Voices, thank you for joining us.